Undiplomatic is an unscripted and unfiltered podcast hosted by Hyatt-Khan that will explore the intersection of business, politics and culture in Slovakia with a host of high-level guests across the spectrum telling their stories.
What was the most ridiculous thing that you read about you? There has to be something that your family thought, man, rang you up and go, is this true? Can this be real?
That was my first term in parliament, and in that time, vice speaker of the parliament, Mr. Cheesh, as far as I remember, he told me that I'm a British agent because of the Brexit. He was very tough on me in this case. I was agent of everybody, even Russian agent sometimes, which is completely crazy. But to be a British agent 007, that was fantastic for me.
There's only room for one of us. I don't think the young generation would be able to get off TikTok to go and join the army, and they'd have to get off their phones. I don't know.
But that's why 3 months is okay. And they will learn a lot, not only about how to use the weapon, for instance, but also how it works. And I can be somehow helpful to my country. I'm okay with 3 months service for my country. This is definitely fine. But coming back to 1 or 2 years service as it used to be, that's a disaster. That's a stupidity for many of our young men. There are some stereotypes about the Slovak that we are xenophobic, racist. Did you ever experience that?
Yes, I've been a victim of racism. It's been swept under the carpet. Even my wife was an apologist. She would say, oh no, you're just different and you're a little bit unusual to them. I'd like to say that now, no, because I think I'm quite well known in certain areas. People know that I'm different and they know that I'm trying to help the country.
What can I do as a regular citizen of this country?
I think it's just embrace what's around you. The more tourists that would come here, then the more people would become accepting. So I am delighted to be back for a brand new episode of Undiplomatic. This week we feature a very special guest, a former political analyst, previously elected to the National Council of the Slovak Republic twice from Banská Bystrica, Deputy Speaker of the House in 2019 and 2020, and he's of course well known to us as being the State Secretary at the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs of the Slovak Republic, and now happily in the private sector. Martin Klus, welcome to Undiplomatic.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Great. So it's good to have you here. I've had a lot of flack recently from my audience, my millions and millions of followers who've been saying, well, not really millions, but
lucky you,
who have been complaining that I bring politicians in, but you're no longer a politician, but you are someone that is very well educated in the political sphere. I give everybody an opportunity when they come on the show to give us a little brief introduction as to who you are. Obviously, you're well known here in Slovakia in the Slovak media, but my platform is maybe to talk a little bit about Slovak politics and Slovak life outside to the outside audience. So give me a brief introduction as to who Martin Klus is.
Well, I'm father of 4 kids.
Jesus.
2 ladies are already almost 20 and almost 17. So
does he look old enough? Does he look old enough to have a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old daughter?
Not sure if many people knows that, but
wow.
Yeah, this is what I really love on my life, that I'm having so much fun with 2 teenagers, and then I have 2 small kids. Yeah, they will be 2 and 3 this year. So I divided my life into these 2 very fantastic parts, and between that, I had this almost decade of the political career.
I'm just sorry. I can't get it in my mind that Martin Klus as a 20-year-old child. You don't look 20 years old.
Well,
What is it? Is there something special in the water in Banská Bystrica that I should be drinking?
Yes, sure. You have to. It's a fantastic place to come, and the water is one of the best in Slovakia. But anyway, I was only 24 when Emma was born, and of course, I'm very happy for that, because some people said he was young and stupid, and now I really enjoying that I have such a beautiful lady as a daughter, and she's now in a decision-making process which university to take, and one of the options is to go to UK, so we have to speak about it later.
Sure. Well, I heavily recommend my alma mater, Edinburgh University. Obviously, I'm sure if she's related to you, Oxford and Cambridge are on the horizon. She's probably a very smart young lady. So you mentioned this 10-year political career. We're going to go into that. How did you get into this? So you studied desperately with an ideology of moving into this field. It seems to me nowadays there are a lot of politicians who aren't prepared for the world of politics, who haven't studied. Was this something that you really wanted to do? I know Mate Bell University, Robert Varsh will be coming here in a few weeks. I had Yarrow, my wife. They all graduated from Mate Bell, which was the
all of my schoolmates.
Yeah, it was the
nice
hub.
guys.
Yeah, it was the hub of international relations and diplomacy for Slovakia, and there seems to be real passion for that here. Was this something that you dreamt that this was an area that you wanted to go into?
Well, I can't say dream, but of course, I always count on this option that maybe one day I have to be somehow helpful to my country. So when I finished in 2003 my master degree at the Matej University, I started first army or so-called civil service, and then as assistant at the university. And as long as I focus on political science, international affairs, diplomacy, and then public policy, especially. I was very close to the political life. And in 2009, I started as a political analyst. I stayed in quite many Slovak media for almost 5 years. And then during the European election campaign, Richard Sulik came back to me because in 2009, when he established the party, I was the one who helped him with the program. And then I left because I get the position of the vice rector. And in 2004, when I finished as a vice rector, he asked me again to come to help because in that time, party had around 3% in a poll. So I came back to help, and I remained up to 2022. And I left the party then again. And now it seems to be forever because I always teach my students, never say never and never say forever in politics. But this time I'm really eager to start a new chapter of my life in a business and to be, again, an analyst because it's probably easier than the political life.
Well, there's two things that I want to ask you. That's very interesting about what you said. First, that you did your national service in the army. Now, we see now in the European Union, there's a lot of talk, especially from Poland, that we have this European Defence Commission that's going to be set up potentially. That the European Union will be a stalwart, a strong haven, a safe haven. Perhaps the defense element has been lacking over the last 30 years. Do you think conscription will come back to Slovakia? By conscription, I mean people in having to go into the army at some point. Do you think that's something that might be on the horizon?
I'm following this discussion also in Croatia, for instance. And as far as I know, they are introducing this 3-month kind of a service.
Yeah.
Very close to the one we know from Switzerland, something like National Guard. And this is okay for me. If I'm back in my 80s or 23, when I finish my school, I choose civil service instead of army service. But if it's for 3 months and I can be somehow helpful to my country, I'm okay with 3-month service for my country. This is definitely fine. But coming back to 1 or 2 years service as it used to be, that's a disaster. That's a stupidity for many of young men, I believe.
And the funny thing is that I don't think the young generation would be able to get off TikTok to go and join the army, and they'd have to get off their phones. I don't know. I don't know if you know.
But that's why 3 months is okay.
Yeah, 3 months is acceptable. They're talking about conscription,
and they will learn a lot, not only about how to use the weapons, for instance, but also how it works.
Also, do you think there's an element of patriotism that's attached to that too? You're a proud nationalist. I wouldn't say nationalist, proud patriot.
Let's call it patriot. Yeah, it's better.
it's a much better word. We discussed that actually in a previous podcast. You're a proud patriot, and there is an element that people, maybe the younger generation, feel a little bit detached from their country because they have had things a little bit easier, perhaps. That maybe this is an area where they could connect a little bit more, understand the value of protecting your borders. Maybe there's a value to that. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm speaking to many young people as my students, and also I'm dealing with some polling activities now, and many of them are telling me that they will leave country as soon as it gets. So maybe this kind of service, but not only for men, but also for women, will be very important for them to keep a kind of as you said, attachment to the country. And
this brain drain is a bit worrying, Martin. You mentioned men and women wanting to be a part of something bigger. My wife, I knew she had dreams of being in the Air Force, but she wasn't allowed at the time because she was a lady. Ladies weren't allowed to be in. I hope she's still a lady. Married to me, probably not. And now it should be that women are an active part of that. But I'm concerned, and I'll come back to the media in a minute because you mentioned now that you're going to be an analyst. But I'm concerned also that the brain drain, all these young people who are probably protesting on the streets, they're not happy with what's going on. they're all talking to me too that they'd like to leave Slovakia. If they can have an opportunity to earn 5,000, 6,000 euros a month in Germany and in London and in America, get a nicer house. How do we stop these young people from leaving? How do we get these 1,300 euro salaries up to 4,000? It's not like the talent isn't here.
That's $1 million question.
Yeah. How would you do it? I mean, you when you were with Mr. Sulik, he seems to me the only person that really had a robust economic strategy for the country. The rest argued about other silly things. He seemed to have a plan in place. But, economy is not very sexy when it comes to polling. It's not very sexy when it comes to arguments in parliament and stuff. I want to know that, the next generation can have a fruitful career. If my daughters stay here, will they earn 1,200 euros a month? I was earning that when I was in my 18 years old, 30 years ago in the UK, in my gap year. It can't be that the people here aren't qualified to earn 4,000 or 5,000 euros a month. How do we get it there?
Well, let me tell you a story. Whenever possible, I'm trying to leave Bratislava or Banská Bystrica and to get to the regions and to speak to the young people at the schools, for instance, about what's the value of democracy, what's the value of the freedom of speech and stuff like this. But anyway, I'm always asking them, what do you want to do when you finish this school? And I'm always asking them, do you ever think about to be a businessman? And guess how many raised hands I saw in all of these classes?
No idea.
Very few.
Really?
Yeah, maybe 1 or 2 people in the classroom.
So what do they want to do?
I said the same when I was in US teaching the same topics, Americans, and 80% of the students raised their hands that they want to start at least a small business.
Yeah.
So if they want to have 2, 5, 6,000 euro per month, this is what we have to think about.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, our educational system still believe that businessmen will grow on
trees.
On the trees, yeah. And this is not true. We are not preparing people to be a businessman. To
I'll defend Slovakia a little bit here because I've noticed what I've been impressed with is what I call micropreneurs. These are small entrepreneurs, people that own 3 or 4 shops, people that have little agrarian businesses in the agriculture sector. They might have a couple of farms. They might make cheese, industrial, small little factories here and there. I see that quite a lot. So I see those micropreneurs. But what I'm not sure is that the young generation have the same aptitude to want to do that. Because maybe at the time when the collapse of communism, a lot of opportunities arose that perhaps weren't there before. It was kind of easier in a way. It might have been the Wild Wild West. But at the same time, there were still lots more opportunities.
That's true. Yeah.
So for the young people today, where do they see these opportunities? Because it isn't going to the MFA and saying, I want to serve my country. I want to be involved. I want to be an economic diplomat. I want to do those are all great aspirations. But it's how do we get the young people motivated enough to think that I can start a small business? It's the same in UK as in America.
That's what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, we all put our hands up. I said I wanted to be a television presenter. I said I wanted to commentate live on sport. I wanted to work for a Fortune 500 company. I wanted to earn lots. I did all of that. And we're taught very young that we can have whatever we want as long as we try. Is that something that's not taught here to children?
Yeah, that's the problem, yeah.
We have young children.
Whenever we are speaking, for instance, about the economic diplomats, I believe these people at least have to try during the high school or during the university studies, some kind of startups to know how the business works. Even not successful way, but to know how the business works, because then also the economic diplomacy they will deal with will look completely different as they have no experience at all. And as former state secretary, I know that some of our economic diplomats had no experiences with business at all. And this was not a problem to hire them.
I know.
This is the gap we are having in Slovakia. We are not motivating young people to risk. I'm afraid
that's really good. We're not motivating the young people to risk, to take.
I'm afraid many of them are afraid of risking. Same case is me.
Yeah.
I'm 44 this year, and this is my first year I ever think about to start a business. Because before that, I was too afraid to start it. I was father of 4 kids, so it was much easier for me to wait every month for the day when the money will come from the ministry, from the parliament, from the school. but now it's up to me to deal with the risk, which of course
How's that
entrepreneurship is
How's that
bringing.
transition been? Is it worrying?
It's tough.
Yeah, your
It's very
wife
tough,
must
yeah.
feel the pressure.
Yeah, she feel the pressure, but on the other hand, she's supporting me in this because she knows that with the experiences I'm having as an analyst, as a teacher, as a former politician, it's much easier for me to start a business. And if I will
Fail?
fail,
It doesn't
it's
matter.
still possible to start again at the university field or to come back to the politics. For
And
instance.
you don't have to go. You go on YouTube or you go on TikTok and you go on any Instagram reel, and you'll find every entrepreneur saying is that failure is the most important thing when you're starting a business. Because if you're not afraid of failing, then you won't try as hard. And even if you fail, you can try and go again. And I think young people are too afraid to fail. For me, living here in Slovakia, I didn't have a purpose. I was very fortunate. I won't tell him this public to his face. He never listens to my podcast. I was very fortunate to meet Lukasz, and we saw something in each other in a completely heterosexual fashion, and we decided that we could do incredible things. I'm an outsider here, and I think we've achieved. It's not like for me. I'm not motivated primarily by money. I like helping a country. I think there's a value to that, and something that you talked about. I've completely gone off the track with my questions, but this is fun anyway. You mentioned the media as well, and you're now an active part of the media, and you've been an analyst, but you've also been victimized by the media. The people have had shots at you. Weren't these your former colleagues and friends? How do you feel the media treat you? You've been an easy target quite a few times.
Yeah, that's a political life. I count on that when I enter politics, that I will lost my privacy. I count on that some media will not like me, especially alternative media, because I had some values and I never left these values. And for these people which are believers to opposite values, it's very easy to make me as a target. Of course, I was very sad, especially if the people with the same values kick on me very strange way. But as I said, it's a part of the political life, and that's a huge advantage now that I'm not part of the political life anymore, and I can live my life and keep my privacy a bit.
So Lubos Blaha said the same thing when he came here, that if you're a politician, you have to get thick skin, and it has to be water off a duck's back. Was there anything particularly that the media said about you that was so outrageous that you actually found funny? Was there one story that the media printed about you that
Many, yeah.
But what's the funniest that you can?
I had very interesting pictures in Zomri for a couple of times. So I kept them. I will definitely publish a book when I will be retired. And some of these pictures will be there because I really like them. Very creative.
Yeah. I know that you were accused of being an Islamist. You were
many things.
And
Many
all
things,
sorts of. What was the most ridiculous thing that you read about you? There has to be something that you thought, your family thought a man rang you up and go, "Is this true? Can this be real?" Because when you see it in the press, there are people who are going to believe it, whether it's completely ridiculous or not. The minute it's in print, the minute it's published, there are some idiots out there that will believe it. What is the most ridiculous thing that you think, if you can remember?
I remember that was my first term in the parliament, and in that time, vice speaker of the parliament, Mr. Cheesh, as far as I remember, he told me that I'm a British agent because of the Brexit, because I spoke a lot about it had to be a fair divorce, and he was very tough on me in this case. So I was agent of everybody, even Russian agents sometimes. Which is completely crazy. But to be a British agent, 007,
Yeah, 007. Sorry,
that was fantastic for me.
There's any room for one of us. I mean, I find it interesting to hear all of these stories. I can't imagine what it must be like here, especially the public eye is so invested in politicians. I keep on saying this. When you go to the UK and you travel to America, and we can talk a little bit about Trump in a minute if we have time. Our politicians only make the front pages if something terrible is happening. So normally it's middle pages or in the politics section. We have sport and we have we have all sorts of other gossip and stuff. And it's rarely politicians make front pages unless there's a huge issue. Here, politicians are in public eye all the time. I'm fascinated by that. I don't know why. are politicians' lives more interesting than normal people's lives or
that's true. Yeah.
It's crazy. So I want to come back now to your time at the MFA. You were state secretary, and a little bit about your time in Parliament too. What was your remit at the state secretary level? What areas were you in charge of looking after?
Well, the funny part of being state secretary is that I entered my office 21st of March 2020. So it was first week of real corona crisis in Slovakia. And I even
Good
didn't
time.
enter my office. I entered first this crisis management meeting of the ministry. And it took hours and hours because in that time everybody closed borders around us, and that was our responsibility to start diplomatic discussions. Who should travel? For instance, so-called commuters or pendlers, as we call them in Slovakia.
It's a good word, that.
That was really crazy because I found out that thousands, even almost 100,000 people are heavily affected if the borders are closed, and their everyday life will change radically if the borders will remain closed. So that was my first task to deal with, and it took 4 months, especially with Austria and Hungary, to find a common way how to let these people get back home or to their daily life for work or to see their relatives. That was really terrible.
It wasn't good for anyone. One thing I was also, I mean, obviously I live here now, and the constant state of emergencies granted the government almost impunitive powers. They would be able to do whatever. We were all forced to stay at home. Fear of gunpoint, police, army circling. We had to mandatory tests and stuff. I don't even like remembering these scenarios. But yet you see the politicians on holiday in Dubai, and we're at home. Do you not think that, is a bit of a joke? If the people who are making the rules are off on holiday in Dubai, why should we follow them?
That was crazy. Yeah, for us it was very tough situation, especially for me because in that time I was almost every day in media. Really request people stay home, follow the rules, don't cross the border if not necessary, and stuff like this. And then you see you're both having fun in Dubai. That was very, very tough for me. On the other hand, I understand that Slovakia is a specific society, and some people believe they are Übermensch, as it is in German, than the others whenever they are in the office, which is very bad for us.
Yeah.
But this is the life in this country, and I'm very sorry that
we all have to experience that.
70, maybe 80% of my time at the ministry was heavily affected by the pandemic. That was tough because I can imagine I can have much more fun and to work with much easier topics like economic diplomacy, for instance. Or I was responsible for European affairs, and we had in that time, for instance, a conference of the future of Europe, which is very close topic to me even now. But I had no time to deal with that because I had to deal with the crazy things around the COVID-19.
You said you walked away from politics. You said you'd never say never. If you could have your time again, if someone said that the state secretary position would open up again at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, would you take it?
Very much depend who will be part of the coalition in the time. Very much depend who will be the minister. Frankly, it's not that interesting for me anymore.
Okay.
I already been state secretary. So if there will be a possibility to be a minister,
that's different.
That's different.
Okay.
Because I understand the huge difference between the minister and the state secretary, especially from the protocolar point of view.
And we have that on record. Never say never, only if the minister's job is up for grabs. Well, you never know. This administration might not last the full 4 years. Talking of your former employers, Mr. Korczok is running for president. The presidential race is wide open now, and there are 2 leading candidates. How will you vote? Are you going to tell me?
According to our polls, it will be very tough, and it will be very close. I mean, the difference is now maybe 2 or 3%. So every vote will count. I guess.
See, he's a diplomat. He didn't give me the answer. Who are you going to vote for?
Actually, it's probably clear for everybody whom I will vote for. We had very friendly relationship with Ivan Korczok, and I'm very grateful to be part of the team of such a skillful diplomat. So for me, it's quite clear whom to vote. But I understand that for some of the people it's not that clear, and it will be not easy also for those who.
My wife keeps on telling me, she said that people are refusing to do the debates on television, and that's a really important part of the presidential campaign. And then there are other rumors going around that Mr. Korchok is being funded by Americans. There's a constant West-East divide.
Yeah.
Why is that still the case? I mean,
it's a lot of anti-campaign now, and for some people, that's what I wanted to say. It's very tough to decide now, and I'm afraid some of them will not come to vote. So,
but you were just in America, right? And you became a fellow at the Eisenhower Institute, and so many congratulations on that. It's a fabulous achievement, and you saw how different America is. It's huge. The possibilities are endless, but they have their own political issues there. When you're in America, what is the perception of Americans have of Slovaks? What do they say? What do they think of Slovakia?
Well, very much depend whom you speak. Yeah. I'm afraid quite a huge part of American society have no clue where the Slovakia is and who's the Slovaks. But
is that their fault or Slovakia's fault?
Both.
Americans are also not terribly well educated globally. I call it global dyslexia. I might lose some fans for saying that, but it's true.
That's what I wanted to say. I found same cases in Britain, even in France. I guess it's, as I said, our fault as well, because we are not that well known as Czechs, for instance, because they have beautiful Prague. We are not promoting Bratislava that much as we have to. So, and of course, our economic diplomacy is maybe not that active, so our business is not that present as the business of other countries. So many Americans, many British, many French people, they have no opportunity to understand a bit who are Slovaks and what's the Slovakia about.
So you've written this book about your journey as a pilot, right?
Yes, right.
And we have it here. This is a plug for Martin's book, and I want to talk about that in a minute. But when you're talking to the American audience, when you're there, what is it specifically that you say that you're proud of Slovakia for? I'm always trying to understand from my guests, because my job here is to try and help promote Slovakia to the outside world. It might seem ironic to you that I'm a foreigner trying to do that, but you know, my children are Slovak, my wife is Slovak, it's now my home. So my aim is to try and take the story of Slovakia outside. And if a Slovak can't do it, why not I give it a go? So I'm asking you, you're sitting there having a beer in Washington with your buddies, and they're asking, so Martin, what is Slovakia like? You know, you can't just say it's detached us. What is it that you tell them that is inherently amazing about Slovakia?
Well, if you speak to well-educated people in US or UK, of course they know. And many of them already been to Bratislava. And it's very interesting to hear the stories that they've been in Bratislava in the 90s, for instance, especially after the fall of communist regime. And they've been to Bratislava now, and they said it's one of the most turbulent places they ever seen, because it has changed a lot.
Yeah.
And I remember it like that too, because my grandpa lived here during the communist era in the late 80s, and I was here for a summer vacation a couple of times. And for me, Bratislava was ugly, gray place. Whenever I was here, I was not happy for that. But now it's one of the nicest places in Europe. I'm really serious about that. Although Banská Bystrica, of course, is a little higher. But I really like it. It's a very cosmopolitan place, nearby everything, and many Americans said the same. And this book is here because it's not only about Bratislava. Slovakia is not Bratislava, and we have fantastic places to show the people. And whenever I'm giving this small book to Americans or British or whoever, I'm always showing them that you have to stay longer than only 1 or 2 days from your way from Prague to Budapest in Bratislava. You have to come to visit also Orava Castle. You have to come to Tatra Mountains. You have to go to Bardejov, of course, to Banská Bystrica and Banská Štiavnica. So they are somehow surprised how many beautiful places we have in Slovakia. And as long as it's both English and Slovak, and there are QR codes when they can find a lot of other informations, I'm happy that I'm a bit promoter of my country like this.
And it should be that way. And talking of promoting the country, the new Ministry of Sport and Tourism has just been set up, and the former CEO of
I'm ready to donate a couple of books for them. No problem.
Good. So that should be mandatory reading. The Ministry of Sport and Tourism has just been set up for this very notion. I presume, would developing the airport be an easy strategy? Because it's really lazy to say Vienna's around the corner. I don't buy that. I don't swallow that. Everyone's like, oh, but Vienna's around the corner. But that doesn't mean Bratislava shouldn't be a thriving hub for different routes and different types of airfare. Would you like to see a lot of investment go into the airport to promote the tourism?
Of course. On the other hand, I'm very, very sorry what has happened in 2016. As far as I remember. No, it was earlier. It was 2006. Sorry.
That's a long time ago.
That's really long time
In
ago.
Martin Klus's life, it's not long because he doesn't age. We've got the Benjamin Button of Slovakia.
Yeah, that was first Fico government, as far as I remember, who just simply stopped at the very last stage that the Bratislava airport will be part of the Vienna Airport Corporation. And we already should have quick train here. We should have much more flights from Bratislava to all around the world, but we stopped it. And we didn't offer
the national carrier stopped.
Kind of the substitution of that. So I'm really sorry. From 2006, we are discussing what to do with the Bratislava airport. For me, as a pilot who started a pilot career in Bratislava, it's very good to have such an international airport, which is almost empty.
It's actually a very nice airport.
It's a very nice one. It's very good to fly there. Very nice people working there.
It's very clean.
It's very clean.
Very
Everything
effective.
is fantastic,
Yeah.
especially for pilots like me, because the runway is almost clear all the time. On the other hand, I'm sorry for that, because this is not helping the country. So,
would you invest in a national carrier? I'm always talking about investing, right? And you spent time in America and in Britain. We like to throw money at problems, even if we can't make up the deficit. So there's a lot of talk about energy subsidies and curbing inflation. But there is also in more capitalist environments to speculate, to accumulate. It's like invest in tourism, invest in a national carrier, invest in trains. There's not a road between Košice and Bratislava. No. I mean, this is Europe, right? It should be there.
I know many of people in the same flight school as I had who are teaching to be a pilot just to make sure that they will get from Bratislava to Košice earlier than 4 hours. So this is the reason why they even bought or at least borrowing the plane all the time. But if it comes to the national carrier, it's a complicated discussion, because I'm not sure if old-fashioned national carriers are the right way for Slovakia.
Yeah.
We can see easily what is happening with Austrian Airlines or Alitalia or even Air France.
Yes, good.
On the other hand, we have nice examples like Baltics, for instance. Even Slovak guy was a very high-class manager there, and it works. And it's promoting both Riga and also Vilnius very well. So why not to teach from successful examples? I guess this some kind of a low-cost national airlines which will connect Bratislava.
But look how effective Wizz Air is.
Wizz Air, for instance.
I think it's Polish, right?
It's Hungarian.
Oh,
as far as I
Hungarian.
know, yeah. That's another example. So why not? Why not to discuss this possibility? I'm sure this could work much easier than the traditional national carrier.
So I'm conscious about time. So there are a few questions that I still have for you now. Unfortunately, we have to talk about the current state of affairs. I don't know when the broadcast will air, but the country is deeply divided right now. Yep. I've never felt it like this. Even as an outsider, I can feel it. You know, I see arguments.
You're not outsider anymore.
Yeah,
you're part of us. Come on.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, you're the first person to say that. That is very kind. I see the division on the street.
Yep.
People are fighting. People are arguing.
Even in the families.
In the families. Yep. 1968 was a historic time for Slovakia, and is one that I don't think should be forgotten. And it seems that there is a lot of disinformation. Your foreign minister was with Mr. Lavrov this week. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because if that's what the protocol dictated, and if that was part of the meeting schedule, then so be it. We should speak to everyone, and that's the benefit of plurality, right? We have to do what we have to do. What I'm concerned about, though, is, are people creating battle lines? Have you ever seen the country this divided before?
Yes. I remember 1998.
Yeah. Again, Benjamin Button. You were 30 then.
During the Mečiar era, I was first voter in that time.
Wow.
I was 18 years old, and I remember how divided families we had in that time. And it was even worse because that was a historical moment, I believe. In 1998, if Mečiar era will remain, we will probably not get to NATO and European Union in the first wave,
And what would this country be without that?
and that will be a real disaster for us. So, luckily, in 1998, we somehow managed this division of the society. I'm a still believer that we will not get to the Hungarian track, and this kind of a division of the society will soon change to something else. And on the other hand, I'm happy that, for instance, civil society is so active as it is, because as a citizen,
And as a teacher,
as a teacher, I'm trying my best also to push hard young people that if they are not happy with the situation, if they are not agree with what is happening, they have to be vocal enough. So I'm happy
So we're
that some
talking
people
about
are vocal enough, and it's not only because they are against contemporary coalition. It's also because they feel that there is a systematic change which could be forever in this country.
you see the protests recently, and I think it was about 200, 300,000 people over the collective amount of protests. Just in case people worry that I said once that there were 200,000 people at the protest, I meant aggregate. Over the course of the few weeks, has anything really impacted? I'm a big fan of civil resilience. Like you mentioned, people should go out and be heard, should speak. If there is dissatisfaction, the opposition is there to stoke these fires, which is absolutely necessary. Do you think there's any tangible result from that? Has anything been impacted other than the fact that people have demonstrated their voice? Will it change anything?
I think so, yeah. That's what we will see during the presidential and the European Parliament election. So if this is a way how to mobilize people to come to vote and not to be ashamed for a couple of years again, for instance, if it comes to European Parliament election, that's a good news. Because what I'm really worried and very much afraid of is that we will be again on the historical numbers. If it will be less than 15%, it will be a huge disaster. And
Do you think it's going to go that way?
well, we already had 13 10 years ago, so I'm afraid it could be like this again. And then it will be a good news for especially radicals, because these people will definitely come to vote. And for me, it's important who will be those 15 members of European Parliament, and we
But
need.
you see, everybody's now applying to be members of European Parliament.
Well, that's a good news.
But people who are heads of parties, people.
That's okay. Yeah.
Can you be a minister and in the
Of
Europe?
course, this is not possible.
Yeah. So
On the other hand, it's good that if these people are there, we have to have a discussion. What's the European Parliament mean for us? What's the European Union mean for us? And
there are some.
there is no discussion at all.
Yeah. So there are some dissenters, or there's some people who that have intelligence who have suggested to me that people in high positions here wanting European Parliament is the worst idea that could happen for Slovakia, because they're not the people that share European values. How do you feel? How do you feel?
That's democracy.
Yeah.
We had such members of European Parliament even in this term, and that's a democracy. Part of the society willing to have people like this. Whenever people are blaming
Can
that.
we just say that's democracy and then just chalk it off? I mean, it's very easy to say, well, that's democracy, but we see it's not effective quite a lot of the time. We've
It's
got
not.
people punching in
And
cars.
it could be a disaster which will never be replaceable. That's what I understand. On the other hand, it's up to us, especially if it comes to educational system, to speak, especially with young people, but not only, that their choice will create government or European Parliament, and then they have to blame on themselves only. So
But if
whenever
you were an outsider and you look at some of the leaders of these parties and you see the fighting, you were obviously in Smerodina for a bit. There's a guy who's a head of a very charismatic, powerful man whose party actually means we are family, and he's fathered I don't know about 100 children. No
15 or 16
Yeah,
officially.
no one embodies a party logo like he does. Then you've got your former head of your party who helped dissolve two governments, with the Radičeva government and then the Matović government.
And Heger as well.
And Heger as well. There is constant dissolution of governments. It's a revolving door. Then you have the fights now that you have with the coalition and the other people. Then the media are afraid to speak. Then people say you can't wear glasses because you're endorsing a presidential candidate. I mean, this is like a soap opera.
It is, yeah. But if you take a look to US and upcoming presidential and congressional election, it's more or less the same.
Yeah.
Even more crazy things are happening there. So yes, this is democracy. This is freedom of speech. Unfortunately, part of it is disinformation, misinformation campaign running from the foreign actors. This is part of our democracy now. On the other hand, whenever people are blaming on government, whenever people are blaming on parliament, I'm always saying, in democracy, you
should
have
have voted
parliament
differently.
and government which you deserve, because you vote for them. You vote for these people. And the most vocal are those which are not taking place during the election time. So they are not coming to vote. So
Education
this is the result.
Education is important to you. You're a teacher, as am I. I teach at the Diplomatic Academy at Comenius University. And I see, not that I teach postgrads, so most of these people are fairly well adjusted. And I say fairly well adjusted, but I see that there's a vacuum. The grades, the maths levels were exceptionally low on a European standard. There's a void in entrepreneurship that you mentioned. How do we raise those standards? It's not like my kids do diktat and they have to, do the same stuff that you were doing 30 years ago. There's a charm to that, but it's not the world we live in today, right? There's a value in learning verbatim, but we have to prepare our children for tomorrow. Yeah. They have to know how to do a profit and loss sheet. They have to do a presentation. They know how to create a business. They know how to use social media integration. They know how to do all of these things. They're still not being taught here. There are no facilities for that. You have to go to academies, or people go to universities abroad. How do we raise the level of education to make Slovakia competitive for the next generation, do you think?
There's no simple answer for that. But at least if you take a look how it looks like at the Ministry of Education last 25 years, how many ministers we had. And it's always like that. To become a Minister of Education is it's a punishment for that guy. Really, that's true. If you take a look on our teachers, those who are teaching next generations, what's their position in the society? Not only financially, but many other things. If you take a look to pedagogical faculties, who are those who are willing to be a teachers, and who are those who are graduating at these faculties, and who are those who are then immediately leaving this country because they don't want to stay in Slovak educational system, then you have quite a simple answer why our educational system looks like it is. And then you have a simple answer why many of our students, after they finish secondary school, leaving to different foreign countries, and they will never come back. This is the brain we spoke about. So
you have
the priority have to be education, but I never seen priority of education of any of the governments, including the one I serve for, and this is a disaster.
I'm glad you said that. But again, education doesn't do you favors in polling times. It's been a problem in the UK for many years, trying to standardize education.
And I will tell you what's the reason.
Why?
It's very simple, because if you change educational system, the result of the change you will see maybe in 15, 20, 25 years.
Nothing
but
immediate.
The politicians are here for 4 years. So to make such a decision, to build a reform, that's politically very problematic. And there is no minister and no party which will go through. And that's the difference between us and, for instance, Sweden or Finland, which did so at the beginning of 90s. And now we can see the results. You mentioned a couple of tests, or European or worldwide tests, where you can see where the Finland is and where the Slovakia is.
And Finland is actually the hardest language in the world to learn. But I would contest that Slovak is pretty hard as well. But let's say your young child, for example, says, "Papa, I want to have $1 billion company." You will, Martin, no doubt tell them you're going to have to leave Slovakia.
Most probably, yes. This is too small market. But on the other hand, we are part of the European Union. What I'm very much worry of is that although we are having these 4 freedoms in the European Union, we still somehow getting to the situation that, for instance, pharmaceutical companies still count us as a 5 million market only.
Yeah.
And this is the problem. So we need to come back to the roots of the European Union, and we need to build on 500 million market. That's the most important for
Well, I
Slovakia.
also think that the Visegrad region, and you know very well that we have a Visegrad for Business conference that unites the V4 through business. I think is the largest trade volume with Germany that exceeds the volume of trade between France and Germany. And yet, because of the historical imbalance and difficulties between the region, it's difficult to aggregate that now in a way. So I see the value of industry here. The European Union is a crutch for Slovakia. It's almost like, okay, we have this. We don't need to go to different markets. We don't need to explore in America. Like you said, now there's not so many Slovak entrepreneurs who are going to America or to Japan or to China. The ones that have, they did it on their own.
That's true.
Is how we open these horizons for the next generation. So I want to come now to your post politics life, and you've moved into the private sector. And what exactly is it that you're doing in the private sector now?
I'm kind of a scout for one of the Slovak companies, which is dealing with especially industry, steel industry, but not only, building industry as well. They are focusing on very specific engineering, like nuclear plants or big water dams, and it's not easy. And it's not easy for them to get to the foreign markets. So I'm trying my best to introduce them for foreign markets, and hopefully they will be soon successful exporters. So that's why I'm also here, and that's why I'm happy to have such a fantastic cooperation with you guys.
And we're glad to have you. That I know the time is running out, and there were so many more questions I had organized.
I'll be happy to come again. No
we
problem.
can do it again, but I just want to ask you of all of your achievements that you had, and I was going through your biography, and you were the former deputy chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, the first ever Slovak elected vice chairman of the Subcommittee for Partnership Relations of the North Atlantic Alliance within the framework of NATO. There's a lot to be proud of in that career. If you could pick one of those things that you could highlight, you think, shit, that was super cool that I did that. What would it be? The one thing that you look at your wife at night and you think, you know what? Even if I never step into public office again, I've done this. And I'm very, very proud of that. What would it be?
I guess it's simple. That was a COVID time, and I personally helped to thousands and thousands of people, and I'm very proud of that. Many of them will never get back home. They will never get to their offices if there will be no very tough diplomatic experience I had, especially in 2020. So I'm very happy to be part of this era, which was very tough, but
challenging but rewarding.
Definitely.
And just to conclude, you said now that you've walked away from political life, but never say never. And because you are the youngest looking 44-year-old in the history of mankind.
No way.
Yeah, for sure.
Take a look to Tom Cruise, for instance. Come on.
Yeah, well, I don't know how old he is. Maybe he drinks goat's blood. I have no idea what he does to keep young. If there was a ministry up for grabs out there that you said you would come back to be a minister, you would definitely not come back to be a state secretary. Which ministry would you really think this is the one that I can add the most impact to? Which is the one that you want? Would it still be the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or would it be another?
Most probably, yes. Of course, defense, interior, or economics should be nice too.
And then the leaning for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And this last question: which direction would you like to see the MFA take? If you were given the mandate to be minister again, which area would you explore the most?
That's economic diplomacy for sure.
And you think the country's failed on that count?
I think so too.
For how many years?
Well, 1993.
So 31 years of abject failure of economic diplomacy.
Yeah, of course, the glass is not half empty, it's half full, but still half is missing. So we have to work hard on that.
One thing I'd like to conclude the conversation with, and I would like to thank Martin Klus for joining me here on Undiplomatic again today. Thank you very much, Martin.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I noticed negativity here. Even in my household, I tell my children, I was like, life is good. You live here, you go to school, you're safe. Slovakia is a very safe country, but you're loved. There are lots of things to do here. It's not London. It'll never be Dubai. It'll never be Singapore or Hong Kong, but there's a charm to Bratislava. There's a charm to Slovakia. I would love people to be less negative.
I think so. Yeah, it's very important. And I'm happy to hear it from you. This is what I wanted to ask you. How about this negativism? Because there are some stereotypes about the Slovaks that we are xenophobic, racist. Did you ever experience that?
Yes, I've been a victim of racism. It's been swept under the carpet. Even my wife was an apologist. She would say, "Oh no, you're just different and you're a little bit unusual to them." I'd like to say that now, no, because I think I'm quite well known in certain areas. People know that I'm different and they know that I'm trying to help the country.
What can we do with that? What can I do as a regular citizen of this country?
I think it's just, the cliche is to have more conversations. No, I think it's just to embrace what's around you. Look at Hungarians, even physically look very different to Slovak people. It's how foreign. There are lots of Spanish and Italian people in the city doing Erasmus. The more people that travel to this country, look, you go to Prague, tourism has helped, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Prague has opened its doors for 30, 40 years.
Even more they have to.
Yeah, and yes, and look at now, they welcome everyone. The more tourists that would come here, then the more people would become accepting. I don't think that Slovak people are inherently racist. I don't believe it. Xenophobic, I think everybody is in every country, which is a shame. The beauty of Schengen is that we can cross borders and integrate with people from all walks of life. I think it's just talking to people. And that's negativity. People shouldn't be afraid to go and talk to someone and say, "Hi, what are you doing here?" Or having a conversation in a cafe or coming up to someone. By and large now, the interactions are positive. At the beginning, it wasn't the case. And I think people who are educated and have traveled outside of Slovakia are more embracing of foreign cultures. I think the people who have always been here and are a little bit insular are protective. And I understand that. Historically, oppression, suppression, subjugation, communism, Nazism, it's not been an easy time for Slovakia.
Sure.
So I understand where that protectionism comes from, and anyone outside is trying to take something from them. But what people then learn is that I'm not trying to take anything from Slovakia. I'm trying to show that Slovakia can be more. And I would love more Slovaks to travel. I would love more Slovaks to go and understand different cultures.
That's very important.
And I think that's the cure.
Yeah, to be more open-minded. And this is bringing me back to another important task of Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs, together with Ministry of Interior, that there is a huge willingness of people from India or China or Vietnam coming to visit Slovakia.
Yeah.
There are many rich people there.
Yeah.
But because of our very old-fashioned visa policy, these people can't get here. They rather take a trip to Paris than or to Prague because of many reasons. So this is what we have to change as well.
Brilliant. And on that note, Martin, I know that you have to shoot off on your scooter. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll have you back again. Thank you, Martin Klus, for joining me on Undiplomatic today. Martin, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
You have been listening to the Undiplomatic podcast, brought to you by Hyatt-Khan.